Hi everyone, good afternoon, and thank you for joining us in our 2024 Government Contracting Summer Shorts Complimentary Webinar Series. First, a little bit about Jennifer Schaus and Associates. We are based in downtown Washington, D.C. with a focus on advising established federal contractors. Our clients are companies who sell products, services, or software to the federal government and range from large businesses to mid-sized firms with millions in federal contracts. Separate from our consulting services, we have amassed a subscriber base of almost 35,000 and our weekly newsletter, The Federal Contractor Weekly. We offer advertising opportunities in the newsletter, including sponsored content newsletters and webinars. If you are interested in reaching federal contractors, please email us and ask for a media kit. Now a bit about this series. As always, our webinars are complimentary and recorded. You can find all of our recordings on our YouTube channel simply by subscribing to it using the link you see on the screen. There is no cost. You can find all of our PowerPoints on the slideshare.net site using your LinkedIn credentials to log in. Again, there is no cost. You can find the links to register for this series on our website, jenniferschaus.com, under the Webinars tab. Please note that there is a separate registration link for each webinar. Now, more details about this series. We will be running this webinar series every day at 12 p.m. Eastern Time. We started the series on Monday, August 12th, and it will conclude this Friday, August 23rd. Our guest speakers cover various GovCon topics and will focus on the areas, best practices, common pitfalls, and FAQs. At the end of each webinar, we will open up the floor to questions. So please type them into the control panel and I will read them in the order they are received. They will be read anonymously. Here is a glimpse of our speakers, leading ladies in federal contracting. Each speaker covers a hot topic in federal contracting. And here are more images of the ladies you heard from last week and will hear from this week. Again, please remember you can find the full schedule and also the recordings, including those from last week, on our website under the tab Webinars. For all of our 700 plus webinars, please hop over to our complimentary YouTube channel. Our webinars are complimentary thanks to our longtime in-kind sponsors. We would like to thank our friends at GovEvents, the premier platform for posting events related to government and government contracting. You can find all of our webinars and our events at govevents.com, as well as recordings from our past 700 plus webinars. We also want to thank Tom Johnson and his team at Set Aside Alert, the go-to publication for contracting opportunities for small, women-owned, veteran-owned, HUBZone, and 8A firms. Visit setasidealert.com for more information. Also, the Fairfax County Economic Development Group is a great resource for businesses in Northern Virginia. Please visit their calendar to learn about events and trainings, including this webinar series. Now I want to tell you about our complimentary webinar series on big tech and the federal government. Please join us this fall for our Big Tech webinar series. This series will run every Wednesday at 12 p.m. Eastern Time. You can find the registration links on our website under Big Tech. As always, these webinars are complimentary and recorded. We will cover the top 15 big tech companies who sell to the U.S. federal government. This includes household names like Amazon, Facebook, X, Salesforce, and more. We will dig into the data to look at lobbying dollars spent, their special interest, stock price, and how that intersects with their federal contracts. We will dissect their civilian versus defense contracts, as well as contract vehicle dollars, to include GWACs and GSA schedules. We will also look at their subcontracting dollars. And a big thank you to our sponsors on the program, C3 Integrated Solutions and FedBiz Access. Don't miss out, this series is offering a unique sponsorship opportunity. We have heavily discounted this series to a rate of $1,500. This covers the entire series. Sponsor benefits include registration list, ample promo in our newsletter, and LinkedIn. You will also get a sponsor site with a 100-word or less write-up about your business. If you are interested, please click on the sponsor link to place your order or send us an email to hello@jenniferschaus.com if you have any questions. The Virginia Apex Accelerator at George Mason University offers free one-on-one counseling to established government contracting firms in Virginia on federal, state, and local procurement topics. If you are interested in learning more, please use the links provided to explore their services, review homework recommendations, register for live training, and find useful links to agencies and other self-directed learning. One-on-one counseling is limited to eligible client companies. Appointment requests are handled in the order they were received and based on counselor availability due to high demand. Online resources and group trainings are free with no restriction on business location. Now let's meet today's speaker. Please welcome Stephanie Geiger from Geiger Consulting to the webinar. Today she will cover the topic of marketing. Stephanie, we're excited to hear your presentation today. I will put myself on mute and turn the floor over to you.
Thank you so much for having me. Hi everyone, as Emma mentioned, I'm Stephanie Geiger, CEO and founder of Geiger Consulting Group. Geiger Consulting Group specializes in providing comprehensive marketing solutions tailored specifically for government contractors and OEMs that are seeking to grow their revenue in the US public sector market. I've personally been doing B2G marketing for nearly 2 decades, and during that time, I've definitely seen the good, the bad, and the ugly when it comes to bringing services and solutions to market, and through that have become a trusted advisor. I'm excited to share best practices, common pitfalls, and FAQs to help you make the most of your budget and resources, and I look forward to answering your questions at the end. All right, Emma, you can go to the next slide. Okay, so let's talk about some best practices. This is definitely a favorite of mine. Be strategic, not reactive. And what I mean by this is taking the time to set an annual plan that gives everyone a common understanding of what the goals and objectives are for the year. This doesn't mean don't be agile. I totally recognize that the market changes, your offerings can evolve, as well as you might be seeing, more traction in DoD versus civilian versus the IC when it comes to your customer interest. But it means putting down on paper key customer targets, messages to market, and methods to market. And this is something that I recommend making a yearly exercise that involves your key leadership team. So members from ownership to sales to marketing to engineering, all coming around the table with different perspectives so that you guys are all there and kind of having that collective discussion. I also recommend including a SWOT to, get real on where you stand and where you might have greater opportunity and where you might have shortcomings. And ultimately, this process allows you to optimize your resources because you're better planned and better prepared to support, key activities that will demand time and attention from you and from your team. And it also allows you to identify more easily when something pops up, right, that could potentially derail you from your course. When you're in reactive mode, or like I like to call it shiny object mode, it definitely equals a constant state of flux. So if you're doing random events or you're doing a one-off campaign, you're really just making a splash in the pan, and it's ultimately burning money and doesn't necessarily result in the desired outcomes. So being strategic versus reactive is a much more smart play when it comes to B2G marketing. Next slide. Understanding your customer. I'm sure you all are saying, hello, this reads like a no-brainer, but if you ask yourself, do you really know your customer, or are you just looking at the bid board for the next opportunity? Do your research. One thing I hear on repeat from SCSers is they get frustrated when industry shows up asking them how they can help. So think about the types of questions you should be asking yourself. A few that come top of mind to me are, who do you want to meet with and why? Is the program that interests me a funded program? Do I understand the missions within the agency? Can I align our solutions or services to the agency's needs? Have I actually reviewed the agency's strategic plan? This is one of my favorites. It is lengthy, yes, but they are full of amazing nuggets of intel. They are on every agency's website. You can download them, get your highlighter out and do some bedtime reading. But it's a really important way to understand what the agency's roadmap looks like. And then also lastly, does the agency maintain a separate IT roadmap? So all of these are really critical bits of insight so you can truly understand your customer and come prepared when you engage with them via a face-to-face meeting or through a campaign. Another opportunity to learn more about your customer is, finding out what they're talking about, right? So going to social media, looking at the events where they're speaking. And I'm talking about both from an agency perspective, so looking at the agency's handles and pages, down to the key influencers and decision makers. When you're out there looking and listening, you can understand what's most important to them and what's timely and what they're passionate about. And that helps you to really shape how you're engaging with them. If you're showing up to a meeting with a customer and expecting them to educate you about what they need, this is a huge mistake and will likely result in a shortened meeting with negative results. So if and when you're granted quality time with a stakeholder, focus on active listening and learning versus delivering a PowerPoint deck. You don't want to just be talking at them, right? You want to make sure that it's a bi-directional conversation so that one, showing up with an educated understanding what's happening in their agency and what their priorities are, what their challenges are, but also learning from them and hearing more and getting more insights from them. You want to be received as an informative colleague, not simply somebody that's peddling a product or service. Next slide, please. Another favorite of mine is an integrated approach to market. So While I'm sure the sales and BD folks are going to hate me for this one, it can't always be about lead generation. So what I mean by an integrated approach to market, it means ensuring that you've got, core pillars from the marketing strategy coming together to work all in tandem. It ultimately drives better results that will help those teams be more effective when they are calling on customers, when they are trying to set up meetings. You need air cover from things like brand awareness to help your prospects see your logo and associate your company with somebody that can ultimately solve their problems. You need content that's strong content that can help you close those deals, because who are you versus any other government contractor, right? You need to really express why your company is different and why you can partner with them to help them address those pain points. Things like thought leadership via social media and industry publications create opportunities for government to know that you are a trusted subject matter expert that knows what they're talking about, right? And they're not just out there fluffing things that you don't have the chops to back up. So going in an integrated approach really allows kind of a multi-layered approach to market, so that you're not putting all your eggs in one basket and just expecting that if you just do lead gen, all these opportunities are going to come your way. It really needs to be an orchestrated dance of multiple things coming together to really ensure that you can give the sales and BD organizations the trajectory that they need in order to be supported as they're engaging with those customer prospects. Next slide. So leveraging tools and third parties to maximize resources, right? Not every company has, multi-million-dollar budgets when it comes to marketing and communications. Companies from small to large are always looking for ways to streamline and expedite their growth to market. Borrowing, other people's money to make your budget bigger, or being able to tap into other resources to allow yourself to take on some of the things that are required in order to be successful in this market. One of the ways that I really think that you can do that is through third parties. This is a really great accelerated path to visibility in the B2G space, and government's already seeking information, education, and events from these respected third parties. And what I mean by third parties are folks like GovLoop, Scoop News Group, Fed Insider, Meritalk, the list goes on, right, of the various industry publications and industry third parties. But instead of trying to bring the demand to you, hosting your own event or creating a piece of content and just putting it up on your website, let the third parties do the lift for you while you reap the benefits. You don't have to have a writer in-house. You don't have to have a designer in-house. You don't have to have the database in-house. They have all of those amazing things for you. Obviously, there's price tags that come along with that, but it allows you to be able to do more with less and almost piggyback on the brands and the notoriety of those brands, because they're already trusted and true. So I like to say, go where government is going, right? So you're going to meet government prospects where they are with the brands they trust. And then what I mean by leveraging tools to maximize your resources, I'm talking about things that your marketing and communications workload might seem overwhelming without. So you can make them more manageable with things like Hootsuite or Sprout Social or Loomly for, creating and scheduling your social media posts, or figuring out ways to repurpose some of your content, right? You've written this really great white paper, so now how do you repurpose it in a way that maybe maximizes that investment? You can do that through tools like Video or Wondercraft. And then from a project management perspective, using things like Monday.com or Asana is really going to allow your teams to streamline the workload. And I'm not just talking about marketing teams, I'm just talking about teams that could be touching different things associated with customer interaction or prospective customer interaction. And it's going to allow you to have greater visibility into open projects and help minimize the need for meetings and create more transparency. Because, I don't know about you, but who needs more meetings on their calendar when an email or looking into a project plan could help to solve that? So looking to leverage third parties to maximize resources and tools are great ways to, streamline your operations and maximize the resources internally that you have to be successful in this market. Next slide. So the last of my best practices is test, monitor, and evaluate. So, every tactic or strategy when it comes to marketing, communications, and B2G is not a one-size-fits-all, right? Some things are going to work, some things won't work, and that's okay. You've got to be able to test and try. So testing different methods to reach your intended audience testing different methods, or excuse me, messages to reach your audience is going to be really important, right? Because if you've got something out in the market for 6 months, and let's say you had an impressions goal of 100,000 and you're only at 10,000, that to me is a good indicator that potentially maybe the message isn't working or maybe the graphic isn't working, right? So you need to also monitor monthly to quarterly, depending upon the tactic, and then be able to evaluate, right? Are you hitting those intended results? So we know, obviously, in the federal market that business does not happen overnight, that it is a process. But you also don't want to have poor performing assets or campaigns stay in market longer than they should, because ultimately, you know, that's just kind of like the easy button, lazy button, right? Like you're gonna just set it and forget it, and that doesn't work because it doesn't allow you to pivot and really make sure that you're learning from the lack of engagement or the lack of activity and being able to evolve either that message or that tactic to be more effective. All right, next slide. Let's talk about some common pitfalls. So I see companies make a lot of these in our market. And so, you know, airing the dirty laundry here a little bit, but also hopefully helping you to learn from this and not make these same mistakes. So the set it and forget it website. This is a huge pet peeve of mine. So you made your website, great, everybody has to have one. But don't just put up your website and forget about keeping it current. I have seen so many companies where, you know, you send an email and the contact form doesn't even go to anybody, or you send an email and some weird message comes back when you get the confirmation that the email was sent as a person that's sending an inbound communication. So government uses your website as a mechanism for research. So you need to look at it as something you're regularly updating it to ensure it reflects your full capabilities. Their government's now also using AI and data scraping tools and robotic process automation for market research. So thinking about things like key search words to help with your search engine optimization, making sure that you've got up-to-date content, that if you are working with OEM partners, that your partners are up to date, that your offerings, you know, are current and reflect what you feel like you're bringing to the table to your government customers. The last thing you want is having someone come to your website and it read differently than what you're trying to pitch them. So you need to make sure that those messages are consistent in the market from what your sales folks are saying in those face-to-face meetings to when they come back to a piece of content to when they come back to your website. So I look at your website as a living resource, and it really needs to best reflect who you are and what you do. So really making sure that you're taking a look at it. I'm not saying every month you need to be making updates, but at a minimum, annually, you need to take a look at your website and make sure that it has everything that you think should be up there that's reflective of who you are, what you do, and what you bring to the table. Next slide. Okay, no consistent social media presence. So harness social media, right? According to Mark Amtower's annual census, he puts this out every year. He collects a bunch of information related to LinkedIn, and LinkedIn has over 700 federal company pages with over 2.84 million feds representing every department and agency. So if you are not actively doing stuff on LinkedIn, you are missing a huge opportunity. So you need to harness social media. Having a social media strategy is key. Putting out consistent social media content on LinkedIn ensures that you've got a steady drumbeat in the market, right? It keeps you visible. It helps you to grow your following. It helps to have people see you as a subject matter expert, help them to understand your company culture if you're doing recruiting, right? There's so many benefits to having a active social media presence, not just having a static company landing page. And if you can up the ante and you've got the budget to do so, paid ads goes a long way. Because of all of those millions of feds on LinkedIn, you can be very targeted with your efforts. If you are posting once every 6 months, it's a complete waste of time. In marketing, you really have to tell somebody something 3 times at a minimum for them to even pay attention to what you're saying. And social media is no different. So if you can get to a weekly cadence of posting and mixing up that content between company highlights to industry news to thought leadership content, it will really go far to build your following, to build your engagement, and to ensure that you can leverage social media the way that it needs to be leveraged in your overall marketing strategy. Next slide. This is one that I love and that is newer to market with all of the AI tools. There's a lot of companies that are getting to a point where they're thinking, I can just have AI do that. I don't need a subject matter expert, or I don't need to hire so-and-so to do this because I can use AI for it. Well, ChatGPT and other AI tools are great, but they are not at a place where they can completely replace a human or a subject matter expert. I mean, there's a lot of facts now showing that ChatGPT, after a certain period of time, is actually pumping out incorrect statistics. So you really have to be there using the subject matter experts. And additionally, if you aren't using a closed domain, that means everyone has access to the information you're putting in. So if you're putting in anything proprietary to try to develop a case study or a white paper or whatever you're trying to use those tools for, now you've put it into the public domain and anyone has access to that information. So I look at AI tools as a great starting point, if you need to flesh out an outline or if you want to expand a thought. But subject matter experts, writers, Marcom talent are still your best resource for creating and implementing strategy and tactics needed to be successful in this market. So don't look at AI as an end-all be-all. Look at it as a supplement or a way to continue to kind of operationalize and streamline, right, versus replace. Next slide. Believing your designations will get you business. So I know this is going to hurt a lot of hearts out here. And in government contracting, having a designation or certification such as SDVUSB, minority business enterprise, or woman-owned small business is valuable, but it is not a guaranteed ticket to securing contracts. So yes, there are government goals in place and they strive to meet those goals. Unfortunately, they often fall short of those goals, but there's also tons of competitors within the same buckets of those designations and certifications. So ultimately, it's still going to boil down to building relationships and trust and applying those best practices that I talked about that are going to accelerate your path to success. So while of course those designations are super important and we value them, and so does government, think of it as ways of a checkbox, honestly, but you've got to layer in some other value in order to really get yourself over the threshold to win those deals. Next slide. So I'm sure a bit biased on this one when it comes to not investing in Marcom, but it really is important. Sales and BD efforts need air coverage, and that's what marketing does. So if you need to start small, get your basics checked off, do your capability statement, your website, things like that, right? But then continue growing your investment in a targeted way. But you've got to include marketing in your annual budget because it's going to help you expedite your sales and BD efforts. So don't think about it as something that needs to start happening in year 3. Start thinking about how you can involve it into your overall strategy as you're going to market, and then continue to build on it. Next slide. Okay, so let's talk about some commonly asked questions as a marketing consultant and somebody that's regularly engaged in the marketing field. I regularly get asked, sorry, Emma, if you can do the next slide, please. How should I invest in marketing B2G? So as I talked about in some of the best practices, integrated efforts all the way, right? So I have found consistent success for myself as I was running marketing organizations, plus for my clients, when leveraging these core pillars simultaneously: content, brand awareness, lead generation, and public relations. So while of course not every business can do at the scale of large system integrators and large OEMs, but if you can try to get those core components working simultaneously, it will be hugely beneficial for you and for your business. And I typically recommend a minimum spend annually for $100,000. And this is direct marketing budget. So this doesn't include anything else you might get from your partners. And that way, with that $100,000 investment, you are able to load it in the right way in order to be effective, and also have something in market annually to allow for a consistent presence in the market as you go after your target customers. Next slide. When I should be spending my budget is also a big question. So in the federal market, 65 to 70% of your federal marketing campaigns should be executed January to June if you're looking to affect end of buying season. So this means you've really got to front load your budget for the first half of the year to ensure that once you get to busy season, you are well positioned with key customer targets. This also means you're looking at, are there going to be major RFPs that are supposed to be hitting the street? What does that look like for me to kind of do some of the pre-RFP marketing, things along those lines, so that you've got those right campaigns in market, you've got the right pieces of content in market, in order to understand that once you get to busy season, people will better know your brand, your name, and making sure that when those opportunities do drop, that you're top of mind for those government prospects. Next slide. So how can a small business make impact with limited resources? Again, common question to me. I deal with a lot of small businesses. So making sure your basic assets are great. Don't have your cap statement look like it was designed in Word, okay? Make it look professional, make it look clean and concise so people can easily understand you. Your website, your capabilities overview, all of these things need to be working to say the same message and make sure that they are effective in communicating your value proposition. After you get those done, move to agency-based marketing. So get really targeted, right? Identify who are those agencies that you feel like I have a solution or a service that maps really well because they have these common problem sets, right? And then start figuring out how to get in front of those. And then get ahead of those RFPs. I mean, if you think that just because, again, you've got that designation that it's going to get awarded to you, you need to have a pulse on what's going on with your prospective customer base so that you're timed in the right way. So these targeted efforts are going to allow you to be much more personalized with your messaging as you grow your business versus, the spaghetti at the wall approach to see what sticks. So it means doing more upfront homework, but it means more effective uses of your resource and your budget. Another way for small businesses is to leverage market development funds, or MDF. They're also sometimes called BIF, or business incentive funds. So this can really help you expand your marketing capabilities. If you're a solutions or service provider that's bringing in OEMs into your deals, then you typically have the opportunity to have access to these funds. So it's kind of like you're building with other people's money, but it allows you to not only leverage the power of their brand, but also leverage the power of that MDF to augment what you might have capable in your own direct marketing budget to bring some different pieces of content or some different tactics to market. Next slide. What should I do to differentiate myself in the market? So value mapping is a huge opportunity for you to align your offerings with customer needs and priorities, which is going to ultimately enhance the effectiveness of your value propositions. So saying that, you are a IT solutions provider supporting the mission of government, blah, right? Everybody's saying that out there, and that doesn't differentiate yourself at all. Or saying that you've got, your SDVOSB or women-owned. You're still getting put up against thousands plus of other competitors. So why would a contracting officer or customer want to choose you instead of the other company? So looking at quantitative and qualitative data points to better communicate your value proposition, your past performance, and then aligning it to those agencies' specific needs and priorities is going to go a huge way to differentiate yourself in the market and make yourself stand out against your competitors. All right, next slide. So let's get tongue-tied here. All right, what's working and not working in B2G markup? Okay, so working, as I mentioned, value mapping is really important. That's definitely working so that you're showing how you map to the mission. Digital marketing continues to be a well-spent area of your budget. So thinking about targeted ads on LinkedIn or other targeted ads through third-party publications. I love topic guides where you're assigning yourself and aligning yourself and your subject matter expertise to, something like AI or cybersecurity or machine learning, because you know that these are individuals that are interested in this topic, and it helps to expedite conversations when you're zeroing in on specific agencies that might be ready to talk about those particular topics. Personalization and relationship building, again, they seem like no-brainers, but a lot of people forget about this stuff. So tailoring your outreach and creating varied and meaningful content is definitely working in B2G marketing. So making sure that you're not just doing this giant blanketed message, that it feels specific to common problem sets or use cases that folks are experiencing. Looking at effective networking and relationship building opportunities. So in this, I'm meaning things like working groups, roundtables, and events that create these higher touch points. So not just a place where you're shaking hands and exchanging business cards, right? They all have their place, but working groups or roundtables where you're having real discussions about problems, you're being able to position yourself as a subject matter expert and talking about how to solve those problems together with government are great ways to move the needle. Leveraging technology, so thinking about things like intent data and meeting them where they are in their decision-making process. And then lastly, for what's working, are data-driven decision-making. So looking at trends and analyzing them, really to be able to make more targeted efforts with your campaigns, with your messaging. So as you can imagine, the flip side for not working, generic messaging doesn't work. So unless if, again, you're saying, hey, we've noticed that within federal healthcare, there's this common problem set and we're marketing it in that way, that works. But when you're saying, hey, federal civilian all, this is going to work for you, or hey, DoD all, this is going to work for you, government recognizes these messages and they just land on deaf ears. So it's a waste of time. Reactive strategies, you're already late to the game with this approach, so don't even bother. And then over-reliance on traditional tactics. So trade shows, again, they have their place, but don't look at it something like a trade show as the end-all be-all. You need to be doing things leading up to the trade show, being at the trade show, being effective, and then what's happening after the trade show. So it has to be more than just that one touch point in order for it to really be effective. And then the lackluster value proposition, again, don't genericize your value prop and land in the land of vanilla when it comes to everybody else and under the sun that's saying the same thing. So try to make sure that you can look at those numbers and figure out a way to align it to the mission sets so that it feels more relevant to your government prospects and your existing government customers. So in closing, I see a lot of these companies spending money and time in places that really aren't going to move the needle for their revenue. And when you're a small business, that hurts a lot. So I look at applying these best practices, looking to recognize if you're suffering from some of these pain points and pitfalls, and using the FAQs as an opportunity to guide you to ensure that you're better positioned for success in growing your business in the federal market. Thanks, Emma. So I'll open it up to questions if anybody has questions.
Yep. Thank you so much, Stephanie, for such a great presentation. Just wait a few seconds. If you have any questions, please type them into the control bar.
And if something doesn't come to mind immediately, but you think after you hop off the phone or after you digest this content, feel free to let the team know, and I'm happy to send a follow-up email as well.
Yep. Oh, let's see. Can you please talk about the capability SLIC?
Sure. So for a capability statement, I'm not sure exactly what the specific question is there, but I like to keep it to 2 pages and make sure that you've got your solution or service areas kind of represented in a concise and easy to digest way. If you can bring in graphics or icons to represent those to streamline it, that's always very helpful. And on the capability statement, again, not leading with kind of the generic, we are an IT reseller or an IT service provider that's a service disabled veteran, but really focusing on, we've helped 10 agencies apply over, X number of products at an enterprise level and this number of locations. If you can quantify, it goes a really long way that even as a small business, you can show the breadth and depth of your capabilities. I think, again, going back to the more professionally designed versus the word-driven version, I think people tend to put a lot of copy on those word versions, and it's hard for people to easily get to what you're trying to convey to them, and kind of ultimately gets lost in some of that shuffle. Hopefully that helps to address that question. If not, I'm happy to go any more specific.
Thank you, Stephanie. If you have any more questions for our speaker, you can contact her using the information you see on your screen. Thank you to everyone for joining us. Today's webinar can be found on our YouTube channel within 24 hours, and the slides, as mentioned, are always on our slideshare.net site. A friendly reminder, our Big Tech and Federal Contracting webinar series kicks off this fall. There'll be 15 webinars, 15 Wednesdays. All webinars are free to attend. Take advantage of our heavily discounted sponsor rates to get in front of federal contractors, obtain registration lists, and share a consistent message over the course of 15 webinars. Again, thank you for attending, and thank you, Stephanie, for speaking today. You can catch today's replay on YouTube, and if you are currently watching the YouTube video, please leave us a comment or like the video and subscribe to our channel. We'd love to hear from you. Okay, that's all for today. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye, everybody.